Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Ron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day wherever you guys are in the world. And we're back with another top 5 video for you guys here today. And in today's video, we are going over the top 5 most power-crept ships in World of Warships Legends. And now, before we get into this video, there's two things. Number one, I want you guys to comment down below your top 5 most power-crept ships in the game. But before you do that, I want you to pay attention because we're going to go over the Google AI definition of what power creep is. In the context of video games, power creep refers to the gradual increase in the power and effectiveness of new items, abilities, or characters, often to the point where the older options become obsolete or significantly less viable. So a great example in Legends right now is the introduction of the new Dutch cruisers. So basically, it makes you want to play them instead of course, a few of the older cruisers. Anytime something's new, that's going to happen. But some would argue that these ships are a little bit stronger, a little bit better than previous cruisers. Now, of course, there's a whole new gimmick altogether, but this is just a somewhat of a little example of power creep because now it makes the other ships seem a little less obsolete, as we talked about. Now, also, I want to note something, right? There's two things I want you guys to do in the comments. Number one, give me another top 5 list, and maybe top 7, maybe top 3, whatever number I want to come up with. But give me ideas in the comments below, as well as your list of top 5 most power-crept ships. Now, in our underrated video, people were... I don't think you guys know what underrated. A few of you maybe didn't know what it means, but underrated is ships that aren't really rated high by the community. Now, again, this is very subjective, and this list here in this video is subjective because it's simply my opinion. But I feel like we didn't get the message across there fully. So anyway, going over my top 5 most power-crept ships in World of Warships Legends, starting off at number 5. And this, you guys might disagree with this, but I feel like the Iowa, which I sold ironically, has been super power-crept. When this game first came out, the USS Iowa was the top battleship. Nope, first of all, we didn't have legendary tier. We didn't have tier 8. The Iowa was the most accurate, most deadly, best battleship in the game. This game was dominated by battleships, mainly because cruisers, people didn't know how to play the game for the most part. But and since then, we have had 2 other Iowa-class ships released, the USS Missouri and the AL New Jersey. And on top of that, a whole new battleship line, right, in the American alternative line, and just a bunch of 2, essentially, with the alternative and the hybrid line here. So on top of that, just a bunch of other tier 7 battleships, the Jean Bart, the Lenin, different ships like that. And as a result, I feel like while the Iowa can still do its thing, especially with carriers and how it has decent AA. But I just feel like it has since been, but we're going to go and buy it back here. It has been power crept pretty hard. Now, most of this list is, it's going to be older ships because that's how power creep works. But if you can think of a newer ship, and I've got one actually on this list, go ahead and leave that in the comments down below. Okay, and speaking of older ships, and another American ship that has been massively power crept is the USS Gearing. Okay, now part of this is I feel like every time I see a player in a Gearing, I feel like the litmus test for a Gearing player, or the final stage of the bureau now is, can you fit this square peg in the square block? And as soon as you, or if you can't, then yes, you get access to the Gearing, because every time I see a player in the Gearing, I feel like they just have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're hiding behind islands, torping at max. What is the torps? 15-kilometer range, whatever it is. They're not spotting, they're not gunboating, they're not utilizing their smoke. I did actually just have a Gearing player drop a smoke screen for me the other day. I think I was in the Louisiana or something. And then he sat behind it, not spotting. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And then he was like sitting outside the cap. Again, anytime I see a Gearing player, because this ship is genuinely fun and like it's not been power crept that massively, but compared to the other destroyers, especially with the recent release of the Gdansk, this ship has been power crept pretty hard. The Z-52, the Daring, even the Vampire, the Gdansk, the Kleber, the Kaba. This ship is honestly near the bottom. Even though I still like it and I still enjoy it, I think it's been power crept pretty hard. Okay, moving on into my number 3 slot here. And you guys might agree or disagree with this. I think Where is it? Oh, it's a premium ship, Aaron, so it's not going to be in the tech tree list here. But you saw the category. I wonder if you guys can guess what it is. And this one is a little special, and there's a little asterisk by this one here. Can I minimize my head without? Okay, no, we're gonna have to do that just a wee bit there. Make me. All right. So yeah, sitting at number 3 here is the Weimar. Now I know what you guys are thinking, Aaron. The Weimar is still pretty strong. I don't know why they get that accent, whatever. But the Weimar was originally released at Tier 6, if you guys know the story, and then Wargaming, because it was stupidly OP, and anyone who disagrees, you're simply wrong, and you lack skill issue. And part of the reason people sort of gravitate towards these ships, and ships like the Kamikaze and just other sort of OP boats, which will be another list at one point, is because they have a massive skill issue. Now, I don't agree with what Wargaming did. They moved this ship to Tier 7, and they still haven't given it a 4th modification slot. However, if you need to really play busted, broken boats in order to succeed, I hate to break it to you, but we got a skill issue. But the reason that this ship is power-crept is because, honestly, it was moved to Tier 7. When you have a ship like the Mines already at Tier 7 and other, sort of HE spamming cruisers, you don't really need another one, so there's truthfully no point to get this boat. Now, it's still good. In my opinion, it can still manage, but with the introduction of carriers, which is actually going to bring me to my number 2 on this list, I think this ship has certainly been power-crept, and this one was sort of almost forced power-crept by Wargaming because of their poor implementation of this ship into the game. Now, they did offer players a refund if you wanted one, if you bought this ship with the balloons, but again, I just think it's a little bit of a... It's probably their one example of a bait and switch, even though they offered a refund. So you're still going to get people like, oh, well, they did it on purpose. Yeah, okay. Anyway, moving on to our number 2. Speaking of carriers, and I think this entire line has been power-crept, and that is the Russian battleships. If you remember the Vladivostok, the Sinop, and even the Soyuz here, when this game sort of first came out, or at least when this line was initially released, the Vladivostok was basically like an Iowa on steroids. It's similar concept in terms of the 406mm guns at the tier, and there is sort of a unique Russian trait of having increased, I believe it's dispersion inside of 11 kilometers. So the closer you got, obviously, the more effective you're going to be for the most part. Now, this ship does have its drawbacks, right? Massive citadel, so you don't want to show angle or broadside, and the limited damage cons. However, part of the reason that I believe this ship is in the power creep category is the implementation of carriers, and even then stronger carriers, as is with the case of the Chokolov, okay? The Chokolov there. When you have a sort of slow, sluggish ship with limited damage cons and poor AA and you get focused by a carrier, yeah, it is going to lead to a very bad time. You could probably also include the Lenin in this category. However, I do think the Lenin is still very strong. But I think the entire Russian line has been power-crept a little bit. You think of the Sinop, you think of the Vladivostok and the Soyuz. Really, with carriers, it's basically just taken this, like, because unless you know you're really, I mean, and you never know that you're not going to get a carrier game. You're always running that risk of just like, man, I really don't want to be harassed by a carrier today. And you don't see a lot of these ships sailing the high seas anymore. So that's usually a good sign that those ships have been power-crept. And anyway, keeping in the spirit of power creep, I think there's a ship that just it goes number 1 on this list, mainly because it was the first campaign, and if you know the campaigns in this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it is actually a premium ship. But it's the USS Atlanta. The USS Atlanta was the first campaign in this game. That's actually, I started midway through that campaign, and it used to be one of the most feared boats in the game, right? When you saw an Atlanta, you knew you were going to be burnt down. This ship was the terror, the original HE spam nightmare of the game. And since then, now this ship is certainly still strong in its own regards. However, I just feel like there are much better options A great example of even a power creep is the release of the Flint, right? Because besides not having radar, it makes the Atlanta obsolete, basically. Now, again, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I think that in just terms of the game, the Atlanta is now really kind of just not a great pick at the tier. The Helena, the Indianapolis, the New Orleans, and the Flint are arguably all better cruisers at the tier. Now, of course, that radar does come in handy, and if you're doing an event like Ranked, where the maps are smaller and you get into those islands a lot sooner, but with how sort of big the maps are, especially at tier 6, and tier 6 is also a really rough tier, because you most of the time at tier 6, you're getting up-tiered. Now, even tier for tier, I still think the Atlanta has been power-crept pretty hard, and I know, just I have a little love for the Atlanta B. I think that was one of my first whale sessions, was getting the Atlanta B, because the Atlanta was sort of kind of gated there when the game first started after that initial campaign. But I think it's definitely number one on my list of ships that have been power crept. So let me know if you guys think I'm wrong. Of course, all the Discord experts. Well, actually, and I'm wearing my fedora right now, being a Discord expert, but you see, according to the statistic, circumference of the moon and the Jupiter in retrograde, you can see. No, I'm just kidding. Again, this video is subjective. It's simply my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, though, in the comments down below. Create an absolute, just heated, crazy comment section, because of course that helps the YouTube algorithm there. But that's the video of my top 5 most power crept ships currently in the game in World of Warships Legends. I love you guys. Have a great day. I'm out. Peace.